Alright, Windows is now starting and EOS Utilities should launch automatically. There it goes. Because the camera is being detected and EOS Utilities was told to launch automatically. Alright, briefly, Windows 10 Pro, real basic. Down here on the bottom of the screen I have pinned to the taskbar the most common things you're going to be dealing with as far as the Lightroom and Photoshop and the stacking program and the rail control. Everything is also in a shortcuts folder. Right here on the screen you've got all the different applications that you're going to be using. If I go down here and open up the computer, this shows your hard drives. This is your C drive, this is your primary image drive. This drive has all of your Lightroom catalogs and your Capture One sessions. This is basically the drive that all your imaging is going to be done with. This is a Samsung 1 terabyte drive that is extremely fast, and the programs are designed to run through this drive. This is your scratch drive. It's also a solid state drive, and it handles the scratch and cache for Photoshop and Lightroom. This is a 6 terabyte data backup drive. Currently, the only thing on it is a copy of your setup files. Speaking of setup files, on the C drive is a folder called Win10 Setup Files. In it are all the files that are used to build this computer. Everything from Adobe to the benchmarking to the Samsung software, everything that was used to put this, even the BIOS for the motherboard, everything was used to build this computer. Including one of the more important things is the basic camera settings down here. It's a little document, and what this has on it are the, let me bring this over to the center of the screen. Maybe not. Here we go. Hey, Windows. This has got the basic camera settings for the 5DS. The ISO that we're using is 100. We want the lowest ISO so we get the smoothest possible image. We're feeding this thing Studio Flash so we can set this ISO down to the lowest possible setting, which is 100. The shutter sync speed is set to its highest Flash shutter sync speed, which is 1/200th of a second. We're in manual mode where we are going to be able to choose our aperture and our shutter speed independently. There's our shutter speed. Our white balance is set to auto white balance, and I'll get into why in a little while. Picture style. We're picking one of the defaults, and it's called fine detail. The sharpening is actually reduced on this so that it doesn't actually get in the way of some of the finer detail. Auto rotate is turned off so that the camera doesn't get confused whether it's in portrait or landscape mode. Preview time is off. We're not needing to preview the back of the live view on the back of the camera. Silent mode has been disabled. That's so that in Capture One we can shoot with live view running. Image quality for our purposes today, we're shooting in full-size RAW, which if we were to export to a 16-bit TIFF would give us a whopping 287 meg file. Before we get started on the imaging, I want to preface this. This tutorial assumes that you have a better than average understanding of Adobe Lightroom. I'm not going to get into how to configure it for your workflow because I don't know what workflow you want. I don't know what these images are intended for, their final use. So what we're going to do is we're going to be shooting in RAW. We're going to be exporting to 8-bit TIFF in an sRGB color space. You can change it over to a wider gamut color space like Adobe 1998 or ProPhoto if you choose. But that's basically up to your own preferences. Lastly, I'm going to discuss the keyboard. I'm going to hold the keyboard up here. This keyboard is programmable. Every single key on this keyboard can hold a macro. In other words, we can sit and record a variety of functions and assign them to any one of these keys. Currently, on the left-hand side of the keyboard, there are 5 keys, and they are all labeled. Each one of them will launch one of your programs. So if you don't want to play with the taskbar, you can just hit that button and it will launch the program. These F keys are associated with Photoshop actions and also your measurement tools in Photoshop, which you're going to find quite handy. You can edit this keyboard, and it's fairly simple. There is a program here, it's called Steel. The name of the keyboard is Steel Series. Let's see right here. And you start the program called Steel's Series Engine, and there you have a mouse and a keyboard. If you click on the keyboard, all the controls for this keyboard, you can launch programs, you can make macros, you can change the color of the lighting. You can click on one of these and pick a lighting color and save it and you're done. I really like the backlit keyboards because I like to shoot in subdued lighting. I turn the lights in my room way down, and I like to be able to read the letters and numbers on my keyboard. So I typically run red, and I'll keep my F keys up in a blue, differentiate them very quickly. That's it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get into actually shooting some of this stuff. We're going to talk about getting our lighting set up and actually how to use these programs. All right, I'm going to try and compartmentalize this video. This section is going to be on lighting and light modifiers and what I've included in the LK system. It's really easy if you follow along. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to establish a neutral gray photo gray background. Pantone photo gray is used to calibrate the white balance on any digital camera. This is about a 12% neutral gray. It's powder coated aluminum on both sides. It is an absolute perfect neutral gray. I'm supplying you with two of these 1 foot square pieces of aluminum. One has a hole in it for a pin mount and the other one is completely blank. You're also going to get 4 of these, which are 2 by 2 inches, and 2 of these, which are 4 by 4 inches. All of them have a foam, rubber foam backing on them, so the pin will stick right inside there. These are great for putting on the stereoscope and lining things up that are very critical, and then putting them in position and shooting them. Leave that as your background. I'm also including assorted scales that you can drop in on scenes if you're shooting larger material like fossils and that sort of thing. This is a black background for pinned insects and material. It's a black velvet. It has little rubber feet on the back. It's threaded and it takes a rod. It's a hollow tube black rod that has wax in the tip so that you can put a pin in it. I'll demonstrate this later, but this is how you'll get a perfect black background for your insects. Speaking of black backgrounds, this is another piece of acrylic with little rubber feet. This is a plain cover. And what you do here, this is for when you're shooting in liquid. You would take a petri dish or a container like this and fill it with ethanol or water. And then you put it on top of the plexiglass. Whatever fluid you're using in here, whether it's ethanol or water, you put a bunch of that on this surface so that when this dish contacts this surface and you let the air bubbles out, the refractive indices will match and you won't see any bottom of this tray, you won't see any of the plastic, it'll just be an inky black background. It's a really neat little trick, it works well. We do this a lot for people that are photographing spiders and larvae and things like that in ethanol. Okay, there's also wax here. It's a special kind of a fixative wax that will allow you to mount all kinds of pinned material. I have a piece over here I'll be shooting. I wanted to do a lateral shot of this fly, so I made a little pillar of this wax, and I can put this right over my gray background and get a nice lateral shot. It's just handy material. It's translucent. You can even melt it in a microwave and mount tiny parts with minutons with it. It's really nice and sticky. Okay, that's pretty much it for, oh, there's one more. This clear acrylic base that has little felt on the feet slides around. You can slide black paper, you can slide white paper, green paper, put all kind of backgrounds you want on this thing. But it moves around. I like it as a base for whatever I'm shooting with because it gives me a couple of handles and I can really easily move my subject around. That's about it for mounting surfaces. Now I want to get into some light modifiers. Okay. One of the things we didn't go over last time were neutral density filters. These are two-stop neutral density filters. They add no color to your light. They simply they cut the light in half essentially. So when you're working with this power pack, sometimes when your heads are very close to your subject, you'll find that you're operating on the lowest possible point of this power pack. Well, I personally like to have my power pack control somewhere in the middle, so I've got some latitude so I can increase or decrease. If you find yourself closer to the end when you're doing close-in copy work like this, you put the neutral density filters in. I run with these a lot, and so they're really easy to put in and remove. They have two little tabs on the bottom. This has sets of slits on all four sides, so it doesn't matter how you put it in. You just line it up with the slits, press in the tabs, and release it, and that's it. And those will fall into play. I'm going to leave these in because we're going to use them for this lighting demo. The next thing are flash umbrellas. These are called convertibles because they're reflective on the inside, but they can also be transmissive. If you remove the outer covering of these umbrellas, the light will come right through the white material, and these will act as beautiful little soft boxes. So you can point them right at your subject and really soften your light down. Now, to mount these is pretty simple. The flash heads themselves are built for this. On the front of the flash head, there's a hole here with a thumb screw. So the rod goes through the hole, the thumb screw tightens down and secures it in position. I'll put it this way so you can see how it goes in. So I'll put it through the hole, slide it down, and tighten down my little thumb screw. That's it. There's my umbrella. Now I'll turn on the modeling light so you can see how this works and what the effect is. So now instead of bouncing off the ceiling, I'm bouncing off an umbrella, so I can now control my bounce light. So I can come in and get a nice even light. So I've got a specimen over here. And I've got a beautiful little soft light lighting it up. It's a neat way to go. I encourage you to experiment around with these, flip them around, take the covering off and point the umbrella at your subject and see how the softbox works for you. You can run a pair of them, obviously, run them at different angles, and that's the whole beauty of having the modeling lights on, because as you move the flash head around, you'll see how it changes completely the lighting and the shadows on your subject. That's it for the bounce light umbrellas. So I'm going to remove that by loosening the screw, taking it out, and closing it up. Also, I will make mention that this clear acrylic stage will take an 8.5 by 11. It'll also take the European A4 paper size. So you can just slide whatever paper you need to under there for your bounce light. Later on, I'm going to show you some histology work with some slides using that white paper as our backlight. It's quite simple. The next thing I'm going to go into is diffusing. Now, anybody that's ever shot macro in the invert zoology world has probably used the little diffusers, vellum or tracing paper, and simply having the diffuser around the subject really softens it up. The issue with this has always been that the diffuser, you have to make a number of different sizes depending on the working distance and the type of lenses you're using. So what we've come up with is a really easy way to do this. This is a little Chinese paper lantern type thing. We call it a bellows diffuser. And what it is it's a paper diffuser. It's neutral in color. It has a weight on the bottom so that it follows through. Now, I'm going to strap this around the camera and my lens, and no matter how I have my lens mounted, this will follow the camera. So I simply put it over my subject. I pick it up. I want to get these cords straight. I pick it up over my lens like that. It self-centers and I'm ready to go. And so now I've got a super nice even light. I can come in on the sides with copy stand. I'll show you what happens. We'll do some live view because this is really cool. I'm going to put my other barn door back on. I went through this on the last video, how these things are put in place. They're very simple again. We just put them over the top of the flash head and snap it into place. I'm going to take my neutral density filter and I'm going to pick a couple of holes here and I'm going to put it in place. It's done. Now I'm going to come over and give myself sort of a copy stand light and I'm going to show you what happens with this in live view. Okay. All right. I'm going to go over to the computer now. And I'm going to start our camera again. Oh, turn on the camera on. That's fine. I'm turning on the camera. It's gonna start EOS utility. I had turned it off. Now we have the live view on. I'll make this large so we can see it. Okay. I will find focus. Ah, here we go, good. It's a bit high mag, so I'm going to lower that. Okay, so now, as you can see here, there's a nice blush on the wings, reflection on top of the wings. And we've got sort of an uneven lighting pattern here. We've got shadows actually from all over. So watch the live view when I add the diffuser to it. Everything cleans up. As a matter of fact, because my field of view is a little bit on the large side, I'm going to take this little tiny plate out. I'm going to put my large one in. And we'll just mount it right like that. There we go. Once again. There. So that's with the diffused material, and that's without it. So it gives me a nice soft light. I use this probably 90% of the time for the work that we're doing, unless I need to get a raking light to show topography and texture. So to set something like this up, we'll walk into the next video. Is going to be preparation and actually getting the sample up with Lightroom. All right, our computer is running. We have EOS utility up on the screen. Before we get started, I wanted to give you an idea of what we're shooting. I've got this fly. I have mounted it on the pin mount on my 4x4. I'm using my acrylic imaging base. I'll set it on there like so. I've got my standard flash heads with the barn doors. I'm going to be shooting f8 with a 100mm lens, so I took off my neutral density filters. But if I need to shunt my light down a little bit, I'm going to show you how to use the shutters to actually do the same thing the neutral density filters do. I've elected to shoot this with the bellows diffuser. I could also use a standard paper diffuser. Either way, it will give me essentially the same result. And that's it. So we're going to walk through now. I'm going to go over to the screen and I'm going to walk you through the software and how that works. The camera's on, it's ready to go. So all I'm going to do is get live view going and turn on some modeling lamps and walk you through the process. All right, over here on the screen, the first thing I want to do is I want to start my the passport program. So I hit the MX1 key on the keyboard and that starts my program. I want to go right to take pictures and that puts that up on the screen. I'm going to move it up here to where I can reach it easily. The next thing I want to do is I want to start Lightroom, which is the M3 key, MX3. And I'll start Lightroom. Very good. Now down on my taskbar, I will be toggling between the passport and the EOS utility. I have here a series of shots from my last run. I'm going to select them and I'm going to remove the photos, delete from disk. All right. Once again, I'll put these back up on the screen. All right, so first thing we want to do is turn on live view. So in EOS utilities, we have down here it says live view shoot and we click on it. Now I'm going to turn on my modeling lamps and my power pack so you can get an idea of what we have here. There we are. I'm going to orient my subject where I want it. I'm going to shoot at a magnification factor of 1 to 1.5x. So I've set my lens. I'm now going to go onto my rail and run it down. I'm hitting my down button, getting myself an idea of focus. First thing I want to do, I'm going to put my diffuser on because that's going to do a couple things. It's going to change the white balance and it's also going to change my lighting. So before I take any test shots to see exposure, I want to make sure I have all my light modifiers in place, whatever I'm using, whether it's a diffuser or bounce light, umbrellas, whatever the case may be. So now my diffuser is on. I'm going to move my select over to a point on the specimen that I want to focus with, and I'm going to hit 6x, which is the next higher mag on Canon's EOS utilities. Now I can see the area I'm looking at. I'm going to go up a little until that area comes into focus. I'm just kind of tapping the up button, and that's it. Now I've got focus on that. I'm going to close out live view. You must have live view closed before you fire the camera. If you have live view open when you start shooting with the sequential shots, you won't get any, the camera won't fire. So I'm turning off my modeling lamps. So right now I took a test shot and my light is still bright. I can go down with my variator and I'll show you that. But I'm going to show you another way you can do this as well. My variator was set to -1 stop and I just set it to -2 stops. So there you go. That's almost a perfect shot. But I'm going to go back to the -1 spot, take another shot, show it to you when it's overexposed, and then show you how to correct it by using the barn doors as a different technique. Let's get that in. Okay, so now it's a bit hot. So if you come over here to the barn doors, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to shutter them down. Like so. I'll still make sure that it's aiming at my subject, but I've just reduced the amount of light that goes through these barn doors. This one too. Like so. Alright. Now, I haven't changed on the monitor again. I haven't changed the electronic control, the power pack. I've changed the barn doors, which is physically, mechanically changing the amount of light that comes through. Let's take a test shot and see what we get. Yeah, so that brings it right down there. That's perfect. Now the reason I did that is because now on the power pack, I'm only at -1. I can actually go up or down right in the middle of my variator. And it gives me really fine control over my lighting. So this is where I want to shoot. That's the lighting I want. We're all good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a stack with this particular one. First thing I want to do is I'd like to get rid of my thumbnails because I don't want to confuse them with my stack. So I right click, remove photos, delete from disk. All right. I'm going to bring up live view again. And we'll bring up our motion control here. First thing I want to do is go to my lowest point, which I know is going to be this rear toe down here. So I'm going to hit the down button. I also want to make sure that my lens is set correctly. So I've got a 100mm lens. I'm going to be shooting at f8 and my magnification is 1 to 1.5. So I want to set this up before I do a stack. Obviously it's going to be correct. I'm going to go to the higher mag. I'm going to run this down. Okay. Now my rear toe is absolutely in focus. And I'm going to say stop here. That's my low point. Now I'm going to go to my high point, which is probably going to be one of these wings. I'm going to go up. And I'll zoom in on the wing. All right. There's my high point, and I'm going to say start here. I'm going to close my live view. Let's go over what we've got. So far we've got our top point set, our bottom point set, and our lighting is set. We've determined what lens we're shooting with, what aperture we are shooting with, and what magnification we are shooting with. We're set to go. And it's telling us here that we're going to get a calculated 8 steps. I've asked it to give 3 seconds in between so that it has time to settle down. I'm going to hit the start button and you'll start seeing them come into Lightroom. By the way, the modeling lights are off. Eight steps will equal 9 images. The first image is taken on the top before it makes a step. We wait for those images to come into Lightroom. All right, all 9 images are in. I'm going to go to my last image and I'm going to click it once to go up to 100%. And look at my lowest point. It's out of focus. I'll go to my next to the last image and look at my lowest point, and it's in perfect focus. So I don't need my last image. So I'm going to right click on that and say remove photo, delete from disk. So now we're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 images. That's just great. So I'm going to select them all. That's a Control A. I'm going to go to my export. In this particular one, I'm going to export directly to Helicon Focus, and we'll call this one Fly, and we're going to say it's 100mm, and it is 1-1.5 to tell us what our magnification is, and that's it. I'm going to highlight this and copy it so that when I get into Helicon I can name it without having to type it again, and I'm going to hit export. So now in theory, when all of these are done exporting, Helicon Focus will start automatically and I will just hit render. I'm going to turn off my power pack. Now I have it in Helicon. I'm going to hit render. And that's done. So we're going to file, and we're going to save our image. We'll go into Lightroom catalogs. I'm going to go into your 8-bit TIFFs. I'm going to make a new folder, and we'll call it Today's Fly. Okay, open, and we're going to save it. Actually, before we save it, we should be able to highlight this. And I pasted the name that I copied from Lightroom so that I have the information I need. I hit save, we hit OK, we close out Helicon Focus. I'll reduce Lightroom. I'm going to go into Photoshop now. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to let Photoshop announce that it needs to continue as trial. Continue trial. And we'll go up. I'm going to go into Lightroom catalogs, guest, 8-bit TIFFs. Come on. And Today's Fly. And open. All right, there's our composite. Now if I want to go to 100%, Control Alt 0 takes me to 100%. That's without sharpening. And by the way, there are no presets in Lightroom in the Develop module. No sharpening whatsoever. So this is on its own. I can add some sharpening with this. I can simply hit the F2 key and bring it up a little tiny bit. That's it, just a little bit. I can add a scale to this very simply by making sure I'm on my pick tool up here on top, on the far left corner. I'm going to hit the measurement key on this, which is F7, and it brings up my measurement scales. I'm going to go down. I am going to pick the 5DS 100 millimeter 1 to 1.5, which is the magnification I shot at. I click on this, and now Photoshop knows how many pixels equals 1 millimeter. So I can go back into Image Analysis and place Scale Marker, and it gives me some choices here. I'm going to make my scale marker 5 millimeters. I can type in any number I want. My font type is Arial, and my size I'm going to make it 18 points, and I'm going to ask for it to put it in black. I hit OK. It'll dump it in the bottom left-hand corner. There we go. I can now grab my pick tool, and I can move that anywhere it needs to be. I can go into my select tool, and I can crop this image out. And that's it. There you go. That's a final image. That's it for the basic construct of a composite image using this system. Okay, on this episode, we're going to discuss the 65mm MPE high mag 1 to 5x lens. So to change the lenses on this camera is pretty simple. First thing we do is we get our specimen out of the way. The camera needs to be turned off when you change your lenses, because the chip is charged, and if you take the lens, Canon recommends you turn it off, because if you take the lens off, it's a possibility of dust being attracted to the sensor. You don't want to have that happen. First thing we want to do is make sure that we get our cover on the front of our lens so we don't get fingerprints on it, and it lets you support it. It's like any other camera lens. You just press the release button, twist and turn, and put the cap on it. We're done. I'm going to grab the MPE 65. Before I mount this lens, I want to describe a modification that I've done to this lens. I'll park it here so you can get a better look. On this 65mm MPE 65 from Canon, we've modified it. I've placed a sticker over the Canon's mag marks. They only have 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, and 5x. So what this sticker does is it gives you half x increments as well. And these correspond with the Passport software, and this gives you twice as many points to accurately do your stacks from. So now I'm going to go ahead and mount this lens. I've got my front lens cap on. I'm going to remove the back cover, line it up onto the camera, and twist. Now I can turn my camera back on, and I will remove my lens cap prior to bringing my specimen out. And I've done this by experience. I can't tell you, it's easy enough to drop a lens cap and destroy something. So I try to get all that out of the way first. For this exercise, I'm going to do a lateral shot on a fly. I'm going to focus basically around the thorax and the head. And so I've taken one of my gray backs, my 4-inch square gray background, and I put a little pillar of the sticky wax on here, and I put the pin in sideways. It's really easy way to do this. I'm going to go ahead and position that on my clear acrylic base. I know that I'm going to want to run my my bellows diffuser, so before I get my camera lens in close proximity, I'm going to put my diffuser down on the table. So that way I can get it in there, because when my camera lens gets really close, it's going to be difficult. So I'm going to bring this out to 3x to start with as an example. I'm going to run my copy stand down to a point about there. Tighten that up. I also like to make sure that my rail is somewhere in the middle when I begin shooting. That way electronically I can move the rail up quite a bit and down quite a bit. So my rail is in the center, my camera's in sort of the right proximity. I'm going to attach the diffuser, and we're about ready to go. So my diffuser's on and good. Now I'm going to turn on my power pack. I'm going to turn on my modeling lamps. And I'm going to show you how to align your flash heads to give you the best image. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up live view. Okay. I'm going to find my specimen. There it is. Now for a finer focus, I will start the Passport software. Okay, so here we have a general shot of our specimen. Now I want to see what my lights are going to be doing, so I'm going to turn off my right side and I'm going to work on my left light. So I turn my left modeling light up so I can see what it does, and now if I loosen my friction arm and I move my light around, even though I've got a diffuser on there, I can see a pretty dramatic shift in highlights and shadows. So what I want to try and do is I want to highlight the top of that eye, and the best place to do that is coming right from the front. So I turn my head until my live view shows me the top of that eye is highlighted. I lock my arm in position, and I turn the left modeling lamp off. Now I turn my right modeling lamp on, and I can see exactly what this head's doing. I want an ambient fill light over the whole back of the thorax with this one. So do I want to come up with it? Do I want to come down with it? Do I want to come more to the front? Nope. I like right there in the back here, right about here. This is where I'd like to do this. I lock it in place. Now I can turn on my other light, and looking at my live view, you can see how the shadows got filled in immediately with that other light. It's like it completes the picture. So I'm going to turn this off, the modeling lamps, because I want to take a general overall shot to gauge my exposure in Lightroom. So these go off. I close out live view. Let me bring up Lightroom. I'll bring my camera controls back. I've got my lens at 65mm. I'm going to be shooting at f5.6. If you go onto page 29 of your manual, you'll see that f5.6 is the recommended aperture for this lens in magnifications from 1 to 4x. past 4x, you have to back it up to f4. Otherwise, you're going to run into diffraction limitation. f5.6 is a sweet spot for this lens at this mag. So my magnification is going to be 3x. So I've got all these decided here. I make sure that f5.6 here is also set f5.6 here. So the camera is shooting at f5.6. Turn off my modeling lamp. Let me take a test shot. And because this lens is a higher mag lens, it's a little more light hungry than the 100 millimeter. So you probably don't want to be using your neutral density filters. Okay, I'm going to look now. I've got an overall pretty nice shot. It's a little on the warm side, not too bad. One of my concerns is this white CD down here. This is often an issue. You get a darker specimen, but you've got some blaring white CD. So if I want to see what that's going to do in the actual shot, I need to focus down on it. So I'm going to put my live view back up, turn my modeling lights on. I'm going to bring my little point of interest square down here, and I'm actually just going to focus down on it because I'm lazy. I don't want to have to turn it up. So now I've got the CD in focus. I'm going to close out that, turn off my modeling lamps, take another test shot. And then I'm going to zoom in on them, make sure that they're not completely blown out. They're not, they're a little warm, so I'm going to go down 2/10 of the f-stop, take another shot. Much nicer. Okay. So at this point, I want to make sure my white balance is correct. So what I've done is I've taken a white balance shooting with a diffuser, and I've named it white balance diffuser. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into File, Auto Import Settings, and make sure that my developed settings is set to where it says white balance diffuser. This way, I don't have to sit there and copy the white balance adjustments from one thumbnail and transfer them all to the next at the end of my shot. I'm done. So now I'm white balanced. I'm going to now delete these images. The rest of this follows through the same as it did with a 100 millimeter lens. I'm going to go through and I'm going to put on my live view. I'm going to open up my camera. I'm going to go down to my lowest point, wherever I want that to be. Okay, I'll pick that as my stop point. I say stop here. Now I'm going to go up to my top. It's the edge of this wing right here. And I'm going to go up a little bit more. And I'm going to say start here. That's going to give me 27 shots, or 27 slices. That's 28 shots. So what I'll do is I'll close out Live View. I'll bring up Lightroom. I'm going to turn off my modeling lamps. I'll bring up my control. I'm going to hit start. We'll let it run and we'll come back when Lightroom's done. Alright, all the images have arrived in Lightroom. Good to go. We have 28 files. We're going to export them. Click on export. I'm naming it Fly Lat 3X. I'm going to copy that so that I can paste that into Helicon when I export. It's still setting up 8-bit TIFF, Adobe, 1998 is the color space. You can actually swap that over to sRGB. And that's it. We're set to Helicon. So we hit export. And when they're done exporting, it will open them up in Helicon. Okay, the images are now exported and they've opened up into Helicon. We'll render those and let that go through its paces. It's 28 files. Once it's run through, essentially it's done. We'll bring it into Photoshop like all the others, open it up, and drop a scale marker on it. Helicon's pretty quick. This is in real time, folks. Done. Say file, save, and we'll go into our catalogs and let's see, we're going to make a new folder and we're going to call it lateral fly. I'm going to highlight this, paste it, and save it. Okay, we're done. Helicon gets closed out, Lightroom gets reduced, and we start up Photoshop. Alright, we'll continue our trial. I'm going to go up, and we're going to say lateral fly, open it up, and there's our lateral fly. It's that straight up. So we can do some minor sharpening if we want to. Don't need it really, but that's it. There you go. We're now at 100%. So we've got detail on the wing, we've got detail on the eyes, the thorax, everything is there. I didn't leave a heck of a lot of room in the bottom of my image for a scale, so I'll put one up here on top. So I'll go here, I'm going to click F7 for my mag. My scales, I have now the 65mm and I have 3x right here, not to be confused with one of the measurements with 1.4x. So I'm going to go to image analysis, place scale marker, and let's see, I'm going to make this 1mm Arial, and we'll set it up at 18 points. We'll make it black, we'll put it on the bottom. I'm going to grab that. I can now put my scale right in there. I could put it over here. I could put it anywhere I want to. So that's it. I mean, this is now something you can save out. The scales come in layers, so you can flatten the image or leave it in a layer, whatever you want to do. But it's calibrated. And the beauty of these scales and why we do this calibration, here's the fun part. I can go into image analysis and I can use my ruler tool and I can click on one point and I can drag it all the way over to another point, and it's going to give me the width I have here. Up on top here, it's showing me it's 1.52 millimeters from one point to another. I can measure vertically. I can click on here, I can go down to the bottom, and I can say, okay, it's 2.63 millimeters. Now, I can also measure anything. I can measure the area of a wing cell. I can measure anything I can select in Photoshop. Then I can go to image analysis, record measurements, and down here, it will actually let me export this to an Excel spreadsheet for data analysis later. That's something you can go online and look up Adobe image analysis tool, and there's some videos that Adobe does on this. It's great stuff. That's it for that. The next video we're going to get into is going to be Capture One. Okay, for the Capture One demo, I'm going to use our favorite fly again. Put it up there. I've switched back to the 100mm lens. We're going to run this at 1 to 1.5, and I'll be shooting at f8. and we'll set that up. I'll put my diffuser over my lens. We'll adjust our lights using our modeling lights after we have live view and all that going. I'm going to initiate Capture One. Now, in the manual, I've included a number of pages that detail how to set up Capture One, how to start a new session, and basically how to operate it and how to file and save your images. This is just going to be a quick walkthrough to give you an idea how easy it is and why we prefer it. It has the camera control built into it. So you have to make sure that EOS Utilities is turned off before you fire up Capture One, so that it doesn't compete for the connection to the camera. So you've got all the camera controls and then some that EOS Utilities has, plus Live View and the fire button incorporated into it. So if we click on Live View, Capture One Live View comes up. It's a beautiful screen. It's very easy to navigate. If we double click it, it goes to 100%, gives us a tight window. We click it again, it goes out. Wherever you click it is where it magnifies. So if I wanted to see the head, I double click on the head and it brings it up. In that respect, it's really easy to use. Now, we'll bring up our lift control software so that we can get in and do basically top and bottom like we did before on this. I want to make sure that I pick the right lens, so I'm going to take my 100mm again. I'm going to put it at f8, and my mag is going to be 1 to 1.5. Now, I want to change the f-stop on my camera, so I'm going to go to f8 here. Live view went down here, and my camera is up there. Alright, so we're ready to go down to the bottom. Which is right down here. Alright. So that's our bottom. We're going to say stop here. Double click it. And I'm going to go up. And I think I'm going to go on a wing there. Alright, we're going to say start here. So it's 8 steps. So I am going to go, and actually I'm going to do a test shot to get my exposure correct. So what I'll do is I will bring it down to a point where most of my subject is in focus, turn off my live view, turn off my modeling lamps, and I'll take a test shot. It's a bit on the bright side. I'm going to move some lights around. And I'm going to reduce my output by a full stop. And I'm going to take another test shot. Now I'm going to close my barn doors a bit to further reduce my light. I'll take another test shot. And I think that's just about perfect. Now if I wanted to zoom in, I double click it, I can zoom in, and I can pan around to get an idea of where we are here. Let me take that down another 2/10. There we go. My histogram is up here in the top left corner. I have a tendency to like it a little on the bright side for this fly. I'm going to leave it right where it is. Okay, now I've gone ahead, I'm going to go back to my first one, and I'm going to hit Alt and delete, and that will delete them all from disk. If I just hit delete, they'll go away too, but they're going to go into a trash bin. Actually, let's get rid of this one as well. I can just hit delete, Gone. So I'm going to take one shot now that I have my correct exposure, and I'm going to do a white balance on it, make sure it's accurate. It's already coming in at the right white balance. So I pick white balance, I click it, it's balanced. I'm done. So now I can delete this. It's retained my white balance. I can go into my auto stacking software, make sure my lens is correct. I'm at f8 here, Canon 100mm, 1 to 1.5. I hit start. And it's going to go through its series, and it's going to punch up 8 images here. And they come in just about as fast as you shoot them. And one more. There it is. Okay, so now we can look at our last one, which is that one. We're going to go up here to our hand. We're going to double click it, bring it in. It's pretty soft on the tail end. I'm going to go to this one, and it's nice and sharp. So once again, we don't need the last one. So I'm just going to highlight it and delete it. That brings me to these. So now I'm going to shift click these. Now I'm going to set it up for exporting. So I can go to my output. This lets me, I can export RAWs, TIFFs, JPEGs all at once. I could say, hey, I want to export a JPEG of a certain size with a certain sharpness for the web, as well as my 8-bit TIFF, plus I want a 16-bit TIFF, and it will export all 3 at the same time for me and give me the names I want. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do 8-bit TIFF. It's going to ask me where to put it. I'm going to make a subfolder, and I'm going to call it Fly. That's simple. I've got a format on here which is going to give me my name and a 3-digit counter. So I will call it Fly, and it will be Fly 001, 002, 003, and so on. That's it. And I just hit process. And all of these are marked with processing. You can see the process button down here on the bottom. They're gone. That's it. They're finished. So if I look, if I move this over and go to my primary image drive and go to my Capture One sessions, just to show you where they are. And my output, Fly. Come on. Those are all my images. So I can take these, I can open up Helicon, I can take these images, I can drag them into Helicon, because there is no plugin for Capture One. I'm rendering my images in Helicon. That's done. File, save, and let's see, we're going to primary image drive. We'll put them back in my Capture One sessions folder. Come on. Now I'm just going to grab one of these files to give me my name. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I shot this with, I'll say Fly 100mm at 1 to 1.5 and save it. Close Helicon and open up Photoshop. Let it do its trial thing again. Alright, open. Let's go into Capture One sessions. Output folder. Again, I can put in as many different subfolders as I want in the output folder. And here we go. Open. And there we have it. There we are at 100% with no sharpening. Now Capture One is a bit, just by its nature, it's a bit more vivid and a bit sharper than Lightroom, so I don't really want to mess with sharpening on this one. It's fine. The white balance is perfect. Again, I can do my measurement. That's f7. Let's pop that again, f7. And I'm down 100 millimeter at 1.5 to 1. Image, analysis, place scale marker. And I will ask for a 5 millimeter. I will ask for an 18 point and black on the bottom. And there's my scale. Drag it up there. I'm going to crop it. Actually, let me try it again. Gray on gray is a little tough to see. There we go. And I go image, crop. Okay. So now I can save that out. And I will do that. I will put that in your folder so that when you get this machine, you can look at the differences. So I'm going to flatten the layer. I'm going to File, and I will Save As. And same Capture One folder, and I will call this one with edits. Save. Okay. Done. That's it. Capture One's pretty simple. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is show you how to do a black background. Because of the fact that we still want our accurate white balance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this white balance. See, Capture One will retain the white balance of the last time you sampled your shot. So I've sampled on my neutral gray, which is great, because basically what I want to do is know the temperature of my lights based on my light modifier. That's not going to change if I use a black background or a green background. I still want the same white balance on my specimen. So I'm going to leave, I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm going to go select all of these, delete them. Oops. I'm going to go Control A, delete, and they're gone. Now I'm going to go through and change my background. So let's bring the camera over here and I'll show you how to swap these backgrounds out. They're pretty easy. I'll turn my modeling lamps on so you have a little bit of light to see with. So I've got my black velvet background here. I want to make sure it's fairly clean. Take the pin out. Just pop it in. I'm going to take the acrylic base off. We don't really need that anymore. And I'm going to get an idea about where my subject is. So let me go back into the camera mode and hit Live View. And let's see where we see Live View. Turn this down a little bit. And I'm going to crank our camera down. Here we get somewhat in position. I'll put our diffuser over it. It loves the billows. Actually, let me raise this up. And there's our specimen right there. Actually, right about there. Okay. Okay, I tried to zoom in on the monitor to give you a bit of a better view. I also reduced the size of Capture One so I can keep my lift program floating in the back and not have to have my programs disappearing all the time. Anyway, I'm ready to go ahead and hit Live View and see what we've got here. So I'm going to go into my camera control, turn on my modeling lamps again, hit Live View, and there we have our specimen. I'm going to go ahead and get a focus somewhere in the middle of it so that I can get an idea of my overall exposure. It's always a good idea to do this before we set our stack size. I mean our stack parameters as far as where it's going to hit. So I'm going to turn off my my modeling lamps, live view, and now I'm going to take a test shot. That's quite a bit hot for me, so I'm going to dial it down. Good. I'm going to take it down just a little bit more. This white CD really shows up hard on a black background. I don't want it to be over the top. That's perfect. It's still bright white. Everything is lit up really well. The crown around the head. Detail on the wings. Perfect. Okay, that's what I want. Now I'm going to go ahead and get my top and bottom. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my thumbnails now. One of the things we did is that we had set the white balance before on the gray background, and since we haven't changed anything and we've allowed capture 1 to basically stay running, it's retained that white balance, and so even though we're shooting on a black background, we're correct. So I'm going to go ahead and find the bottom here. I'm going to go down. I can see those rear legs come in. I'm going to double click on them. Okay, now I'm going to say stop here. Click on it again. Now I'm going to look at the wing. That's where my top's going to be. There we go. We're going to say start here. Another thing I'd like to point out is prior to doing this, I had the light meter on the camera set to center weighted. I've changed it to spot, meaning that the camera will not adjust its video gain based on the background. It's only going to adjust its gain based on here. So when I'm shooting on a black background, if I have it center weighted, it's going to try and bump that gain up so that this is exposed correctly, and it's going to blow my specimen in the middle out. So by changing the camera to spot, it's where it should stay. It's fine. So now I've set my top and my bottom. I'm going to close out my live view. I'm going to make sure my lens and everything is set correctly. Yes, I've got the 100mm lens, f8, 1 to 1.5, and I've got f8 here. It's scheduled for 6 steps. That's going to be 7 slices. So I'm just going to tell it to go ahead and start. Okay, as they're coming in, I can see where good, now my body's coming into focus. Couple more and we're done. Alright, we're in. So my last one, I can see the legs are sharp. Right there, pin tack sharp, no problem. Okay, so we didn't waste an extra one. So I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to go into my process mode, my output mode. I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to put it into a subfolder called Black Fly. And I will rename this capital B FLY 100mm 1.5. So now I've got the lens I shot it with and the magnification, which will allow me to add a scale on it at any time later down the road. And so then I'm going to hit process, and it'll process the 7 images out. They're done. I'm going to go into my primary image drive, my sessions folder, my output folders. There's my black fly folder. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we're going to highlight these guys. I'll fire a Pelicon and drag those over. and hit render. Let it do its thing. It's a pretty quick process with old Helicon. It's good stuff. Okay, file. And we're going to save this out. It's going back into the Blackfly folder. I'll grab one of these guys. And I'm just going to change the number 1.5 and I'm going to put comp for my composite and save it out. There it is over there. Close out Helicon and I'll bring up Photoshop again. Here's my comp. I'm going to open it. That's it. There we are at 100%. Everything on this is absolutely razor sharp. And what I love about it is it's got a beautiful, solid, inky black background with no modeling. When you get this machine, open the files and look at them in Photoshop, because you'll be able to see things that I just really can't show on this video. This is why I'm going to leave all these files in the folder, so when you get it, open it up, take a peek at it. I'll go ahead and launch my scales measurement. Now if you don't want to use the measurement key, you can just simply go to Image, Analysis, Set Measurement Scale, and that will bring up your measurements. So I've got the 5DS, 100 millimeter, 1 to 1.5, and then again, Image, Analysis, Place Scale Marker over here. And I'm going to take and make my scale marker white. I'll make it 5 millimeters, and I'm going to make my font 18 point. That's my standard. I hit OK. Okay, and that's going to put my. Now you grab the pick tool, and then you can. This will grab the bar, the graphics, and anything, anywhere you want it, anywhere you need it. So I'll put it over there. I don't use my crop tool for cropping as much as I use my select tool. And I don't know why, it's just an old thing I do. Anyway, so image, crop. And that's it. So it's done, it's finished, it's ready for publication. It's a really pretty shot. Okay, back again. One of the things I didn't get a chance to discuss yet is bounce light off the ceiling. So what I've got here is I've got a really big specimen. It's really shiny and rather large. So I've placed it on one of our backgrounds. Now if you look, these lights, the studio lights, are pointing straight up to my ceiling. I've got a 9-foot ceiling here and it's white. And so what's going to happen is the light is going to expand. It's going to go up, it's going to hit the ceiling, and it's going to come back down. Light travels in a cone, so it's going to exit these heads. And the further it goes, the wider the light is. Once it bounces off a target, it's coming down again even wider. So we're going to have a very broad light. What this means is that it really reduces the spectral highlights and reflections you're getting off your specimen. So you can get some amazingly, this works great for LEPs. When you've got butterflies and moths, this gives incredible detail with no reflections whatsoever, and really easy to do too. You just point it at the ceiling. Now, it works better when you've got larger material because you've got some room for your lens. Your lens is not shadowing your subject. When you're very close to your subject like this with a lens, like with the 1 to 5x, it's not an effective method because the lens is actually shielding the subject from the light. So you need a little bit of room around it. Lastly, it takes a lot more power to do this because your light is traveling 18 feet as opposed to 2 feet. And if we all know the inverse square law, that means that we're going to need something like 10 times more light. So even with the pack at full power, sometimes you can be pushing the limit. So you can kick your ISO up from 100 to 200. Right now I'm going to be running f8, 100 millimeter lens, ISO 100, and my power is going to be, I think I've got a quarter power and a quarter power set. So we'll give that a shot and see what happens. Now I'm going to turn on my turn on my power pack, and I'm going to turn on my modeling lamps, and I'm going to bring you over to the screen and get a close-up of what exactly we're doing. Right, so now for our bounce light, we're going to put on our live view. And there's our specimen. Now I've got a little reflection going on here. These are actually from my house lights in the ceiling, and also the one that I just walked in front of. Here, that's this. And so those we're not really going to worry too much about. Right now I'm going to go ahead and take a test shot and get an idea of what this specimen looks like. So I'm going to bring up Lightroom, and I'm going to bring over this and I'm going to take a shot. Modeling lights off. We might have to increase the amount of light coming through. Yeah. So we need more light, so I'm going to bring it up to half power. And that did it. So now we've got a nice detail on this. We've got no reflections. We only have a little tiny bit, but it's a really nice soft reflection here. Now we can go ahead and stack this as well, just like we have all the others, but basically I wanted to show you a lighting technique. It works really well. If I grab another specimen really quickly, I'm going to take another beetle, a smaller one. I'll put on my live view so you can see what we're doing. Where's my live view? There we go. So I'll put another beetle in here. Actually, we'll flip them around. There we go. Now I'm going to get a little closer with this one, so I'm going to go 1.5. Just to give us some idea. Alright. And I'm going to take a shot of this guy. See what we get. Where's my live view again? There it is. Alright. I'll orient that correctly. And close. Now another thing I've done, I've taken a white balance in Lightroom and made a preset. Okay, there we are. Now I can kick that light up a little bit more. Turn my power pack up. Again, my light is moving about almost 20 feet. That's actually a little on the hot side. So what I've done here in Lightroom, I had discussed in the develop module. That's perfect. I had made a white balance for my diffuser, and I called it white balance diffuser, and so that was calibrated based on the color of the paper the diffuser's made of, and so it gave me a perfect white balance once I set it. Bounce flash is completely different, because now I'm bouncing the light, and it's hitting the ceiling, it's hitting this gray back, it's hitting this slightly beige curtain I have on the left hand side, so all these things add to the color. So what I did was I took a shot with my bounce light, and it came in actually a little bluish. So I white balanced it, and I saved a preset, and it's called white balanced flash. And so now every time I shoot, I know if I'm shooting or white balance bounce. And so every time I know I'm shooting with bounce light in this room, I can select white balance bounce, and my white balance is going to be accurate every time. Just be mindful. Now sometimes I make a lot of different, in Lightroom I make a lot of different presets for the white balance depending on the light modifiers I'm using. It just makes my workflow easier. I know what I'm doing, I can pick it and I'm done. I don't have to sit there and play with applying white balance to different sets. So that's it. It's a neat way to go. You get really great detail. It's a super easy way to get a shot without a lot of reflections, and again, it works great on highly reflective material. And that's the basics for bounce light. Thanks. I'd like to discuss now the idea of doing histological slides or any kind of slide mounted specimen. I have a piece of mammal lung here that's been stained and prepped. It's just a student slide. I'll put it on my acrylic table. I'm going to put a white piece of paper underneath it, and the concept here is really simple. We're going to aim the lights down on the paper. They reflect through the back and give us transmitted illumination only. This is a simple soft backlight. So what we've got is I've got the MP 65mm lens. I've got it stretched out to 4x so that we've got a pretty good field of view on this one. And we're going to go ahead and set it up. So what I'll do is I'll turn on my power pack and I'll turn on my modeling lamps so you can get an idea of the specimen and the range and distance. Then I'm going to go ahead and bring you over to the monitor so that you can get a close-up view. Alright, now when we're illuminating our slide, it's a pretty simple process and requires very little bit of power. So I've got my power pack turned down to quarter on both heads. It's on ratio, and I've got my variator down 1 full stop. I've also got neutral density filters on my flash heads, and my barn doors are closed down, so I'm not giving it much light at all. It's pretty intense bouncing off of a white piece of paper. So I'm going to go into live view and line up my specimen first. There it is. I'll put it somewhat in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and check focus on it. So I'll bring up my lift software here. I'll zoom in on a spot. And it looks like it's pretty good. So I'll go up, I'll bring it out of focus, and bring it down so you can see it. Yeah, that looks pretty good right there. Okay. So that's my focus. So I'm going to close this out, and I'll take a test shot. Actually, I'll bring my variator up a little bit, turn my modeling lamps off, and take a test shot. This is mostly single shot stuff. Okay, it's a bit on the hot side, so I'll bring it down. I'll dump my power pack, and I'll take another shot. I'm at f4, as you can see here, and I'm at 100 ISO, so there's no stressing for light. Okay, good. We're there. So now we've got a nice, clean, clear, sharp shot of this. Again, I'm using direct flash white balance because I wanted to make sure that my white balance was accurate, so I shot a gray card with my direct flash, white balanced it, and set it. So now everything I put on this table and shoot, I know it's going to be color accurate. Not that it much matters for a stained piece like this, but it's nice anyway. Shooting moth genitalia, I noticed when I'm staining, getting some of that stuff that's really beautifully clarified and stained, then I've got reds and blues, It's nice to have the color correct. Really, really pretty. That's about it. This is a pretty much basic shot. You don't really need to stack on this because it's just one level. You bring it into Photoshop, you add whatever sharpening you want, you crop it, you scale it, and you're done. That's it. Easy. Well, I hope this video tutorial has been instructive on the system. There's a lot you can do with this. Please read the manuals, the one that comes with your camera, the power pack manual, the computer manual, as well as in that manuals folder I've included a few PowerPoints, one on advanced digital imaging and one on imaging and fluid. These were PowerPoints I did for an iDig Bio conference in Chicago and in Michigan. They're packed full of information and resources. Also, I want to put you in touch with other people that use this system that do a variety of different types of work, because as I'm not a photographer, I'm a mechanic. I design and build systems for photographers. It's best if you can actually start to get in touch with people that do the actual work, and I've got a few friends across the world in Singapore and Australia as well as in Germany that do phenomenal work, and it would be great resources, so I'll be sure to include their contact information as we converse in the future. Well, that's it. I hope everything works well, and if you have any questions when you're setting this up, please don't hesitate to contact me. All right, thanks.